You are listening to CrossTalk, a safe place to discuss addiction, recovery, harm reduction, and everything in between. Support for this podcast comes from the Kentucky Opioid Response Effort and Advocates of Recovery. Content and production by the team at Turning Point Recovery Community Center. Now, buckle up and get ready for the show.
Welcome everyone to CrossTalk Recovery, the recovery podcast that supports all forms of recovery. I'm Matt Lewis, and I'm here with...
My name is Austin Salyer.
And Thomas McCollum.
Welcome, guys. All right, this is going to be a fun one, man, for me, because Thomas and I kind of grew up together, sort of, in the madness. We ran in the same circles, the punk rock skate scene of Paducah, Kentucky, back in the day. You know, I don't have a lot of friends in sobriety that I had in the madness that are doing good. And not all of them were as bad off as me. Some people could drink successfully and drug successfully, I guess you could say. But I know maybe we were just some of the worst of them. But I know that it was awesome when I found out that you were also sober, been sober for a while. And like I was newly sober at that point, and we've kind of kept in contact. And you're down in Nashville. And this has been a long time coming. We've talked about having you on. Yeah. But just have you guys on and kind of like, I mean, we can reminisce. I know that I wanted you guys to tell a little bit about your journey and pathway into recovery. I know a little bit about it, but to share with our listeners. And, yeah, man, we'll just have some fun.
All right. Well, yeah, I was just telling Austin on the way here, same way you said it, man. I don't know of a lot of guys that I ran around with that ran the way me and you ran that actually are doing this recovery thing now.
Right.
And I've gotten hyped up a few times along the way, probably went too far with some old buddies and ran them off and, you know, stuff you learn along the way. But, yeah, it's super cool to, I was stoked when I don't even know how I found out that you were doing this. I don't even remember. I
remember when you reached out to me after you guys had played a show at Dragon. I ran into you outside.
Yeah.
And then I didn't know, either of us, I don't think, knew. We were sober at that point. And then like a couple weeks later, Corey reached out to me. He's like, can I get your number to somebody? And he's like, Thomas wants it. So I guess that you had heard from them or Danny, maybe. Because Danny
I do remember that now. And I ran into you and, like, there was a little bit of language, and I noticed you weren't drinking, and which normally we were.
Well, always, right?
Yeah, and amongst a lot of other stuff, but yeah, man, it's super exciting. Like I took Austin around some old stomping grounds on the way here, and
home sweet home.
Yeah.
I can make it home.
Right. I love Paducah. It's where I'm from. It's where I grew up. For me, Paducah wasn't my problem, but my relationship to this area at that time was a problem,
Sure.
And it's not the case for everybody.
People, places, and things.
Yeah, and I had to go, and so it's good to be back, and what you guys got going on here was never, to my knowledge, anything that was happening in this area, and it's awesome.
I mean, we definitely weren't looking for it growing up, but I mean. Turning Point wasn't here. Like you said, we were talking about earlier, there was only one meeting that everyone knew about, and I wasn't going to it back then, so yeah, it's changed, man. The recovery community has really grown here and everywhere, really.
Yeah. My first experience with 12 Steps was at a meeting in Paducah years before I actually ended up getting sober, and I went in there highly under the influence and ran my mouth a lot. And there was a great chairperson in that meeting, man. And he very politely said, "Hey, man, let's talk after the meeting." And I was pissed, for years about that. And, so it's kind of interesting how it comes full circle.
Yeah, definitely is. So, I mean, tell us a little bit about your journey to, like, what was the point that you got to that you was ready to do something different, and what did it take?
Well, man, drinking and using, I fell in love early, that's not everybody's story. It is mine. I could take Austin to the place that I first drank and used right now. Yeah. It was magical experience for me. And it worked for me very well for a long time. And now it wasn't working for my family and a lot of people that cared about me. Like immediately, they were very concerned about my behavior and the things that went along. But, you couldn't have hit me in the head with a sledgehammer and drugged me to anything to do with sobriety for a long time.
Yeah.
I was not interested. It worked beautifully for me. Like I said, it didn't work for my parents very well. So, I was out of the house by the time I was 17, 18 years old, and wanted to do my own thing. I had parents that taught me how to work, which I didn't like as a teenager, but I was able to do that and party the way I wanted to party for a while, but long story short, minus all the gnarly details, by the time I'm 28, 29, I'm doing things that, even in the party circles back in the day, like you didn't do that.
Right.
Like I got some buddies that would let you know what was up if you cross these certain lines, and not unlike a lot of guys in this area and everywhere. I got wrapped up in the, drinking's always been a huge part of my life, and then other things. I got real wrapped up in the opiate world, and there's really, I'm not saying this to be cool, not much I wouldn't do if it would change the way I felt. There were certain things that I had to do.
Yeah.
I found out about that in my mid-20s. I found out what those guys that were always sick, what they were talking about. I didn't know really what do you mean you're sick?
Yeah.
No?
Yeah, it's a rude awakening when you realize you can't function without this.
Yeah.
And then you do it long enough, like I did, you get used to being sick. Like, here we go again, and willing to do anything you can to change that.
Yeah.
And don't care who you hurt along the way.
Yeah, man. But yeah, it's like I can't tell you that there was one, there'd been a lot of really bad events that happened. But for me, the best I can tell, it was an accumulation of living that way. Because I had lost, I'd blown up every relationship I've ever been in. I'd been broke. I'd torn up my car, their car, I'd torn up cars, lost apartments, lived in rough places, been sick all the time, and all that stuff sucked. But there was something, finally by the time when I was 34 years old, I did what, tough punk rockers do, and I called my mom, and I said, I think I'm having a nervous breakdown, and that's the only thing that I could think to say. I wasn't one that made a lot of declarations that I was going to get sober. I made a lot of declarations that I'm going to stay off of the hard stuff, and the addict alcoholic dream. I'm just going to drink and smoke pot successfully.
Right.
And I could never do it. Never could. It always did those two things to excess, or ended up calling dude, and the ones who know what that means. So, I just remember thinking, if this is going to be my life, I'm not interested. And that was kind of a scary place to get, because I'm thinking, is this where it happens? What happens to a guy that gets lower than this? And when I say low, I don't mean like losing the stuff or blowing up another relationship or being broke. All that stuff really sucked, but there was something on the inside, that I just ran out of steam, and like I said, I called Mom, and she'd been waiting on that call for, not an exaggeration, probably 15 to 20 years easily, and my parents showed up and got me to a detox place, and then sent me to Discovery Place, which I'm now executive director, which is insane.
That is crazy to me, man. I mean, it's awesome. Yeah. It's awesome. But just to think how far we've come, like myself, like I'm our QRT lead here at Turning Point. I'm on the board of the ASAP for Graves County. Like, I'm an addict, man. Like, I'm a gutter punk. What is going on? So, but it's amazing. It's amazing what recovery can do, and when you change your life around and you're willing to commit to trying to help somebody and do this, man. We'll be right back.
Hello, everybody. You want to know something? My biggest issue with meetings is, despite their name, they're never about me. Here at Turning Point, all of our meetings are for you and about you. We have meetings at least 3 times a day, 7 days a week. We are located at 415 Broadway, Paducah, Kentucky. Call 270-444-3621 for more information.
Hey y'all, did you know it's illegal to own just one guinea pig in Switzerland because they get lonely? Here at Turning Point, we don't want you to ever be lonely either. That's why we are open 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Always feel free to come hang with our friendly staff, and don't forget your guinea pig. We're located at 415 Broadway Street, downtown Paducah.
What about you, Austin, man? Tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, well, I was thinking too, because when we were driving over here, Thomas was talking about in treatment, Paducah was the thing that he wanted to come back to. And nothing wrong with Paducah, but just the idea of that life being so attached to that drug addict life, man. I mean, I had the same thing. I remember, for me, my story is, it's just like everybody else's, I also can remember the first time I got drunk. I can tell you the house I was in, the person I was with, what we did. We snuck down and got liquor out of his, mom's cabinet, and we got Gatorade, and we thought it was going to taste gross. Or we heard through the grapevine, people that had already done that it was going to taste gross, and we had mixed this liquor and Gatorade together. Come to find out, the liquor was Bailey's Irish Cream and orange Gatorade. We made this weird dreamsicle drink, and I got trashed, dude, and woke up the next morning, and I was like, that was the best thing in my entire life. And I vividly remember, walking around this dude's neighborhood, drunk for the first time at 13 years old, and thinking to myself, I'll do this at any moment that I get. It was for the first time in my life, I felt like me and another human were on the same playing field. I'd never felt that way. I was always the worst in the room, or I'm the best to ever do it. And that's how I lived my life. And so then alcohol kind of just leveled me out, and I felt like I was okay for the first time in my own skin. So looking back, it makes total sense that, from the very first time that I started drinking, I was immediately attracted to the elixir. I wanted more of it. I wanted more of that life, and just the natural progression of that life. Same for me. It just kind of moved into some harder things, a lot more drinking. I landed in treatment. I got introduced to treatment early. When I was 16 years old, it was my first time in treatment. I remember at the end of 30 days, I'm standing on this table, and I'm like, I'm going to stay sober forever. And the counselors were like,
you could pass a lie detector test.
All right, dude. And I definitely could have. I really believed, that's all I needed was just go to a little bit of treatment and learn some things, and I'll be on my way. And there's that other piece of me too, though. I'm a 16-year-old kid. I'm gonna probably keep going, and I definitely did. And ended up relapsing the day I got out, and I was in and out of treatments for my entire adult life, jails and all that kind of stuff. All the things we do. Yeah. And I remember the last time when I got sober, I was sitting outside of a motel in Tampa, Florida. I'm from Middle Tennessee. I'm not from Florida, and my addiction took me all across the United States, Texas, Florida, different counties in Tennessee. Not across the United States. That's a bit of an exaggeration. We'll say the SEC. I toured the SEC pretty good. Yeah. And I called this dude at Discovery Place, who was an employee there, that I had gone to that treatment center months before this relapse, and really looked up to this guy and just was like, what do I do, man? Because at that time I was 26, been in and out of treatment since I was 16 years old, so for 10 years kind of doing this rodeo, and never able to figure it out. And I straight up, I was like, what do I do now? And he was like, well, really, I called him and I told him, dude, because I was doing crystal meth and all kinds of other things. And I told him, dude, I'm not even doing meth. I'm just drinking and smoking weed, man. I still can't go to work. And he's like, bro, you already forgot the drugs and alcohol are not your problem. And it just clicked in my mind for the first time. And I had heard that, being in and out of treatment a lot. I'd heard that so many times, but for some reason it clicked that time. And so I asked him what do I need to do, and he told me exactly what to do, man. And for some reason, I still don't know, I did exactly what that guy told me to do. I got on the plane. I called Dad one more time. Please help me out. This is the plan. This is what I'm doing. He didn't quite believe me, but he took a chance and put me on a plane, and I flew home, and he picked me up the next day. And he was, oh my God, it was Father's Day, dude. Happy Father's Day, Dad. Here's your junkie son. It's just not cool, bro. But he picks me up, and he's driving me out to a halfway house in Dixon, kind of where that's where Discovery Place is, and didn't have the finances to go back into treatment, but I had some sort of willingness I'd never had before. I don't know, I still don't know how to explain it. It was because I'd gained and lost things in my life, I feel like I'm the king of getting 6, 7, 8 months of sobriety and kind of getting everything back in order, and then burning it down, for a multitude of reasons, really never doing recovery. But this time I had some untapped resource, I guess, and I started doing exactly what these people told me to do. And, 5 years later, I'm now the director of admissions and business development at Discovery Place, man. Like, it's just the kind of stuff and that's what I was referring to earlier, like this, where we're at now, you, Thomas, those are not the plans I had when I rolled up to treatment, man.
No.
This is not what I thought I was going to be doing, nor was I ever interested in doing it. But that's the crazy thing about God, man. That's the crazy thing about recovery, is it's like, if I'll just get out of the way and just let this thing do whatever it wants, turns out it's going to be okay, man. So far it has been.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's just been, I love how, you guys' story is similar to mine in that we stayed in position and, I worked at the rehab that you went through and just stayed connected like that. That's, the easiest pathway to succeed in it. And, I know there's, like we say all the time on here, there's different pathways to recovery. Everybody does it a little different. And I've seen success stories in all aspects of recovery. But for me, I knew, especially living here in Paducah and being from here and growing up here, I knew that I had to stay connected to this scene, because it would be real easy for me to start running with. There's a lot of our old friends still live around here, and I run into them every now and then at a gas station and stuff, and, try to say hi, but I know that I can't run with them like I used to anymore, and that's why I had to stay connected to Centerpoint when I graduated, and then came to work here, and I don't know if, I'm sure it is the same for you guys, that the peace and the fulfillment in my soul from trying to help someone else and not living selfishly anymore is priceless. I'm happy doing what I'm doing, and I wasn't happy for years before. I had moments of happiness that were drug induced, but they were fleeting. Now I'm consistently happy with who I am and what I get to do. I just feel like it's such a blessing, and like you said, it's truly by the grace of God in this program that's even possible.
Yeah, man.
So talk a little bit about y'all's program down there, Discovery Place. I went and toured it. I guess it's almost been a year ago, hasn't it?
Yeah, probably so.
It's a beautiful place down there in Dixon, Tennessee.
Yeah,
so
man.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, so started in '97. A couple of guys, they wanted to do I think the word they're using these days, now they didn't use it back then, is 12-step immersion. So that's what we do at Discovery Place. It's a spiritual retreat for men, and we take guys through the steps, and not on a worksheet, check it off, memorize it kind of level, but how to apply this to my daily life. And what happened for me at Discovery Place is I started hearing guys, I struggled, man, most of my life and in early sobriety with sobriety. Sobriety by itself, maybe I should say abstinence from drugs and alcohol, has always been very miserable for me. I was convinced by the time when I made that call, I was ready to stop doing what I was doing. I was tired of being sick all the time, and tired of this thing that was going on inside of me that was not funny. I mean, you know how it is. We got some humor that some people think is not very funny. I think it's super important, but what was going on with me before I made that call was not funny, at all. I'm talking about being almost 35 years old, and I got tears running down my face about the way that I'm living my life, and I don't want to be. So I got to Discovery Place sober. I'd been in the hospital for a week and was still not feeling great, but I was sober and I wasn't happy. Not even close, I was struggling, man. Like the guys that were, I walk in and I got my scowl on and I got my Black Flag shirt on because I'm trying to throw up a flag to see if somebody knows what's up, because I'm scared, And there was a guy that was, had similar taste in music and all that kind of stuff. But I was terrified. And of course, I'm not going to let you know that. I'm going to kind of walk up the sidewalk like, I'm all right. This sucks, Right. And I'm kind of looking around. I meet my guide, and he's smiling, and he's got the little polo on, Yeah. I'm like, he doesn't know. He's too clean cut. He's got a polo on, Once I got to talking to this guy, Matt Kuhn, I was like, oh, all right, yeah. You may not look it, but, yeah, that was a gnarly story you just told me. Mm-hmm. But, more than just the sobriety thing, because I found out, I didn't know it at the time, but, abstinence from drugs and alcohol, and that's it, is super miserable for me, And these guys started talking to me about, the disease of alcoholism and drug addiction and how, the way they talked about the way their minds worked, drunk or sober, high or sober, I was like, oh, I might have that. And I'm starting to get interested. At first, the guys that were smiling and cutting up, the only thing I knew to do, because that was so foreign to me, was to tear them down in my head, and maybe even to other people sometimes. Like, these guys are dorks, or these guys, I don't know. I don't buy it. Sure. It's the only thing I knew to do. But I think really what was going on is that I was envious of what they had, because they seemed, I tested them too, to see if they were really had lived the life, and they passed the test. I could tell that they weren't BSing me, and they seemed, happy may be the wrong word, because I've got a kind of twisted idea of happiness. I think something's wrong if I don't feel like I've been shot out of a cannon, But they seemed content, and they seemed at ease with themselves. Yeah. And they told me that they had found that through practicing the 12 steps as a way of life. And they kept emphasizing that word practice. Like, I didn't know where I was going when I got to Discovery Place. I didn't know if I was, good enough to be there. I thought I had to maybe, clean my act up before I could get in recovery, or I was going to have to be perfect and never mess up. And I had a lot of crazy ideas going on, and they just kept emphasizing that word practice. We're just practicing. Knuckleheads like us are just practicing this kind of spiritual way of life. Yeah. One day at a time, and guys, man, it's like I try to think of new, clever ways to say things, but the old timers typically get it right a lot quicker than I can. And, concepts like one day at a time. There were times early on where my only goal, because I was struggling so bad being sober, and I was so irritable and restless, discontented, that I just had to get my head to the pillow, and not leave. I just, over time, guys loved me until I could begin to start maybe taking a look at loving myself a little bit. And it's still awkward to use that kind of language for a guy like me,
We'll be right back. One thing I have always wondered is who put the alphabet in alphabetical order. At Turning Point, our goal is to help you put your life back in order. If you struggle or have struggled with substance use disorder and are in need of help, Come see us at 415 Broadway Street, Paducah, Kentucky, or call 270-444-3621 and sign up for peer support services with one of our friendly staff who have lived experience with addiction. Hope to see you soon.
As a woman in recovery, I know how important having a fellowship of women has been for me. Come join us at the Women of Worth All Recovery Support Group here at Turning Point, 415 Broadway, Paducah, Kentucky, every Friday night at 6 p.m., where we discuss our personal experiences in recovery. Hope to see you there.
It's awesome, man. I mean, yeah, they're very similar. I was in the hospital for a week before I went in there. Didn't want to be there. I had the shakes for 2 months and still detoxing, it took a while for me to actually be willing to open up to what was going on there. I don't know if Discovery Place is anything like Centerpoint. Everybody that's been there for a while, it's like, I love you, man. Supportive, help bringing you oranges. You're like, what is this? I'm used to jail. Everybody just leaves. Stay out of my way. I'll stay out of yours. But yeah, it's just that something clicked. When you're ready, like you've been saying, sick and tired of being sick and tired, and day at a time. All those old sayings are so true. Easy does it. Relax a little. I love that, because as much as you get sick of hearing that early on in treatment, once you start applying it, you see how true it is and how it helps you.
Yeah.
What about you, man?
Man, I mean, Discovery Place is a special place, dude. I mean, there's no other way to put it. I think it was probably, for me, it was the first time that we're a smaller facility, and that's very much on purpose. It's not like a big organization where there's, like 80 or 90 patients or whatever you want to call them walking around, and, it's very small, which threw me off a little bit, because I'm used to going like to these big, like I'm getting lost in the sauce. I'm making jokes in the back and not taking anything seriously, and all that kind of stuff, and being that dude. And the caseworker's like, all right, man, whatever, dude. And I couldn't do that stuff at Discovery Place. Not that we don't like crack jokes and people don't do that, but like there was like a sense of like you're kind of put on notice, like people, you were seen immediately by the staff, you were seen immediately by the guests that were there. And the thing that really stood out to me was that all the staff members, besides the lady that works in the financials, is an alumni of the program. So everybody in the kitchen, all the way up to the executive director, and everybody in between has gone through Discovery Place at some point and got their life changed, and is now got bit by the bug, wants to help people and all that kind of stuff. And so I was like a little weirded out at that at first. I was like, this place is a cult. Like, I'm not really buying into this. Like, this is kind of, like kumbaya, and everyone is like, love your brother, and they're giving you hugs, and you're like, what is going on, man? And super uncomfortable, obviously. I'm dying in my own skin, but these dudes are loving me as soon as I show up on that front doorstep, and they stayed that way. Nothing changed, like it just like they kept loving me where I was at. And I never been to a place. I've been to a couple different like really well-known treatment centers, and they took me through the book, man. Like, that was the deal. They took me through the big book and the 12 and 12 and the daily reflections with a fine-tooth comb in a way that I'd never done before, with people that didn't go to school on how to, talk to me or deal with me, like a dude that was 2 years sober, that was a junkie just like me, that like had some experience with the book, and he's like, this is how it worked for me, and like this is what I got from this when I was in here, and this is how it applies to my life outside of here. Do you have any questions? What are you thinking? And I don't know, man. It was just it caught me off guard, I think. And but the truth is that kind of what Thomas was saying is, whether I wanted to admit it or not, I was absolutely attracted to what was going on, because these dudes were like the dudes that were working there, I mean, they were like married. Some of them, they had like wives, and they were driving cars that they were paying for and all this kind of stuff, and like they had bills that were getting the lights were on at their house and the water was running, and sometimes they would have kids, and I'm like, this is like, I just never thought that was possible, and nor was I even. I think, the hard exterior would have been like, I'm not interested in that stuff, man. Like, I don't even care about any of that. But the truth is, dude, that's what I want, man. I did. And I saw that it was possible for a guy like me. And they were big. We're big about, if you'll do what we do, you can get what we have. And not like in like we have it all. But like, if you want the life that we're having, which is given to us by the 12-step program and Discovery Place, and like the good life, man, it's available to you. You just got to do exactly what we're doing, because we did exactly what somebody else told us to do, and that dude did exactly what somebody else told him to do. And it's been this domino effect since the 1930s, and so it just works. It's just Discovery Place is unique in the fact that we're just a bunch of guys that are junkies and drunks, man. We're not doctors, clinicians, or psychiatrists, and not saying that none of that is good or bad or indifferent. It's just, it was a different experience, man. Just talking to people that had been in your shoes, because I've gone to therapy and I went to the doctors and got put on medications and all that kind of stuff. And again, not saying that it's not good, but we're kind of built on this idea that there's no other better person to help an alcoholic than an alcoholic. It just makes sense. It's simple math. And so like, it's just been working for, I guess, 26 years now, 27 years now. And I don't know, man, it changed my life. The 12 steps was the last thing I tried. It's the first thing that worked, man. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I like how you're saying that you thought it was kind of like a cult, man, because I was the same thing. And like, they're just brainwashing us here, because you're going, like, I don't know, at Centerpoint, we're going to the same classes every day for weeks on end, and they're just beating it into your head.
Hearing
and I'm
the
like,
same thing over and over
but then,
again.
and then it's like, but I needed a good brainwashing. That's the problem. All up here, like you said earlier, man. Drugs and alcohol are just a symptom. And it was my thinking and my actions and the way I looked at the world and my spiritual well-being that I had spent no time on developing. That's my favorite thing about the steps, is the spiritual principles behind the steps, because I feel like whether you're working the steps or not, anyone in the world could benefit from living by those spiritual principles. And if everyone did, the world would be a drastically different place. And that's what fills me today, is living by, and like you said, someone passed it along to you, and all we have to do is pass it along to someone else, man. I love sponsoring guys and working here, being able to work with people one-on-one and pass that on, because it's succeeded for me. And like I said, I know that the 12 steps isn't the only way that people can recover, but I'm passionate about it because it's what worked for me, and I've seen it work for so many others. And I just think it's a great thing, and I'm so happy you guys are on here today. You guys asked me a question before the podcast, so I'll answer it officially on the podcast. Back in the day, I had a nickname called I was named Mahamba. All right, dude. Most people didn't know me as any other name but Mahamba.
I just started calling you Matt.
Recently.
Yeah.
I know, and it's not. Since you ask, I'll tell. But it's not some crazy story. We used to go to the mall and we're older and play in the arcade. There's video games. That's before everybody had a PlayStation or Nintendo. We called it training. And go to the mall, we play, spend $30 in quarters playing. Well, there's one game, I can't remember what it was. I think it might have been Street Fighter.
Or Final Fight.
Or maybe that. It had a character called Mahamba, right?
Okay.
And of course, Corey Green, who does nothing, he's the king of insults, right? He just started calling me Mahamba, and I hated it. Like, that's your new nickname. What we're going to call you.
Man.
Hated it. But I also was smart enough at that age to realize the only way to take the power away is to own it.
Yeah.
So then I just started introducing myself as Mahamba, so that he couldn't. So I won, right?
Yeah.
And it just kind of stuck for years. That was
a hard nickname, dude.
Yeah, I know, and it's taken some weird twists and turns over the years. I tried to get rid of it when I moved to Florida, but I moved down there with a bunch of people who knew it. When I moved to Louisville, I only moved up there with with Kelly.
Yeah.
But then Shane came up there, and it was like, and then he brought it back, and then other friends I met up there that knew other people. It just took forever to get rid of it, and people thought I was Amish. I for a while I had only the beard, but no mustache, and people would call me Mahamba, and I played that a few times. I'd be like, be at the bar and be like, yeah, I'm Amish. I just left the community. I'm new to the world, trying to. Oh, man. I had some fun with it. But, yeah, that's the origin story of that, man.
Nice.
So,
all right. Yeah, it's been years. I never knew.
Yeah.
I just said it. It's Mahamba.
That's cool.
Yeah, well, it's Sir Matthew now. Actually, sadly, the nickname that's been going around work because I didn't do what I knew to do and because I can't own it, is they call me Matty Bear because I really hate that.
Yeah.
And I let them know that.
Yeah, that's
and
tough.
So now there's stickers with my face all over the place that say Matty Bear. Yeah. It's but you know what? Flattery is, or how's the saying go? You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that thing.
That one saying.
Yeah. They love me. Yeah. That's what it is.
We've had some pretty wild nicknames on Discovery Place, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had some pretty wild ones. There was two dudes named Matt, and they would call each other Little Matt and Big Matt, but Little Matt was huge.
Right. It's usually how it works.
It was little. That's not the wildest.
He also had Lil Narcan.
Lil Narcan.
Was his rap name.
Yeah, that was tough. Yeah, that was tough.
It's a good one.
Yeah, it is good. It's good.
Yeah.
It's like, I like it, man.
Lil Narcan, man.
Yeah, well, I appreciate
it's terms of endearment, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. I mean, even though I don't enjoy Matty Bear, it's the fact that they're calling me anything, I guess.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you guys were able to come on. I know, you're up here picking up some T-shirts. What are you picking them up for? Tell me again.
Dixon County Recovery Fest. Mm-hmm. So it's this weekend. I guess I didn't know that this is Recovery Month. I was like, me and Austin were talking. I was like,
oh, wow.
Sure are a lot of recovery fests going on this month. And then
weird.
I saw actually on this podcast that it's Recovery Month. So I don't know. I'm a little behind the curve on some things.
We'll be ready next year, man.
Yeah, but it's cool just to get to be a part of it and have a buddy of mine from back in the day. He's got a screen printing business, Loud and Clear. It's a little plug for him.
Yeah.
And, he printed the shirts up, did a great job, and, we're going to see what happens this weekend with that.
Awesome, man. And I still need to get down there and share my story sometime.
Yeah,
I know we talked about it when I visited.
Yeah, anytime.
You guys are pretty booked up the last time.
Yeah, we'll get you on a Friday night, man, and anything we can do for you guys, let us know.
Yeah.
All right, I appreciate it, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, check us out on YouTube or listen to our audio versions on Apple, Google, Spotify, Podbean, Amazon Music, and as always, stay grateful.
If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction or in recovery and needs guidance, speak with Turning Point's team of peer support specialists by calling 270-444-3621. You are not alone, and we are proof that recovery is possible.